So welcome everybody to Women's Empowered Network. I am so excited to have Susan with us. She is going to talk about one of my personal favorite topics, and that is the marriage between our soul and our 3D life experience. And so Susan, I'm just going to go ahead and let you take it away. And I'm kind of curious, when did you first start realizing this awareness?
Well, as we spoke about just before we came on and started recording, I said that, my background, I'm kind of known as a spiritual scientist, and my background was psychology, psychotherapy. I worked in child protection for a long time, so I was a trauma specialist. And then that led me to understand more about the mind, the body, and became a neuropsychologist and so on. And I had an awakening, and my spiritual awakening was around about age 27, which was a way long ago now. And it's in astrology. I'm an astrologer as well. So in astrology, that's your Saturn return, your first one. So basically, I didn't know that at the time, but it was make or break. And it was like, there's your awakening. The rug's pulled from under your feet. And essentially, I had a friend of mine took their life, and they came to me in the night. And I was a psychologist, I was a science-based, evidence-based person doing research into trauma. And I had this happening, and it was like, whoa, it was so scary. And then I had a reading. I'd never had a reading before, and a friend of mine got me a reading and said, "You've got to find out what this was." And it was Martin who had taken his life, and he'd actually been a previous boyfriend years previously when I was younger. But he took his life, and he was actually my spiritual awakening. And he came through and told me it was him, and his dog was there as well. And he said, "This is, you're walking the path of." The girl said, "You're walking a path of the master psychic." And I was like, "No, I'm not interested. I'm a psychologist. I'm not interested at all." But of course, as you know, once the awakening happens, you kind of can't go back. So then I spent a long time trying to disprove it. So I went to the College of Psychic Studies in South Kensington, which is where I first started to open the door to kind of try and disprove it. And I couldn't disprove it because I started to see, I started to hear, and the tutors that I were with just said, "You're a natural, like you have a natural channel." And then I went on a course which was metaphysical, so actually seeing into the body. And that was it. I just like, that was it after that. I could not discredit it after that. I could tell that what I was seeing and what I was being told was what that person needed to hear. And so then I kind of stepped away a little bit from it. And then I found myself again stepping back into it, and I ended up being a platform medium. That's somebody, like gives evidence of survival on a platform in a church, in a spiritual church. And I was in London at the time. And I lived a parallel life. I was a medium, and I was also a psychologist in child protection. So I lived this kind of parallel life. And in those days, you just didn't talk about it. Just nowadays we can say what we like, but you just didn't talk about it. So you didn't talk about that you were a medium. And yet my colleagues started to kind of get the gist that there was something different, because I'd be handed a case. And as I was handed the case, I'd know exactly what the case was about. And I'd forget sometimes because I'd be being told at the same time as being handed the case. And I'd be like, yeah, that's it's a domestic violence case, or that's a drugs and alcohol case. And I was just being told it instantly. And they were like, "How do you know?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, I kind of saw the files or something." And I tried to kind of poo-poo it for a while, and then they just knew. And then they were asking me for readings. So then after that, the kind of rest is history, but it just evolved and evolved and evolved. And then years later, after having children and so on, there were many other awakenings that happened. And finally, about 15 years ago, maybe slightly more, I stepped out of the spiritual closet, and I let people know that I actually did work with my guides, and that I could see, and that I wasn't hiding behind being a psychologist anymore. And that all happened because I ended up being in the media, and what happened in media in the UK, and on national TV and stuff like that. And there's no way that I couldn't speak about it. So that's when it kind of all sort of started to open up. And, here I am all those years later, living as a channel, teaching channeling, holding the space for people to find their mission. I'm really helping people to heal so that they can be the best version of themselves, living their truth of who they are. That's kind
That is so beautiful. And I was
of.
thinking about my first awakening, and I went to a private retreat, where I had the experience of just being pure consciousness and not this body. And then I was working for an oil company, and I go back to big corporate America, and I'm like, well, everybody else is sleepwalking. I don't know what to do with this information, so I
And
went
once you
back.
know it, you can't go back. And I
No,
used to say, I don't know if you said this, but I used to say, oh my goodness, it's such a responsibility knowing. But now it's amazing that you know, because life is so much easier. When I have this thing, Ginny, which is the 3 pillars of abundance. And I teach. The first pillar is know thyself. The second is know that you're not on your own. And the third is know why you're here. And those 3 pillars pull together this stream of abundance, of opportunity, of friendships, of love, of money, of whatever you need, which is the frequency of abundance, and a healthy body, right? Because your body is the barometer for your soul, talking to you all the time. And when we even have like just a touch of, I know who I am, and I know I'm not on my own, and I know there's a reason why I'm here, even just a touch of that allows the stream of consciousness to open. And so it just excites me that there are so many more people awakening to who they are, because the more that do, the lighter the planet is, and the more peace and expansion in this ascension journey we have. Mm.
and I don't know from a cosmic sense or astrological sense, but there seems to be a bigger, more awakening.
Oh
And
yeah.
even for myself, and less fear to share, like you said, at one time in my younger years, there, new age was very taboo.
Oh
It
yeah.
was like in some shady little
Weird.
corner mall, and
And
now
it's
it's all
weird.
in mainstream.
Mm. Mm. And that's a good thing.
Well, yes.
But we also need to discern, I talk to my community about this. It's like discern what feels right. If someone says something and it doesn't feel right to you, then just just let it go. Don't listen to that, because that isn't what you need to hear. And as you said, once you really embody the soul, and we were talking about that a little bit before we came on, once you've really embodied that soul, that higher self, you're following your life through that higher self. And not so much, you said, didn't you? You said like the ego side of it. We're not so much holding that kind of mind ego. We're holding the space for the listening of the intuitive guidance that takes us. I call it GPS for your soul. So it's like, you're like literally being guided all the time. And I think one of the key things for that is non-attachment to outcome. So, that's kind of a hardest thing, I think, being human, is like wanting to know, what might happen, who might happen, you know, why is that happening, that kind of thing. I think that's our real thing about being human, to step fully into our higher self and not have an attachment to outcome. I'm 90 something percent there, but there are little bits of me, especially with my children. There's little bits of me as like fall into the 3D, the little ego bit. But yeah, yeah.
What's so beautiful about this too, um, is how we heal past generations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can you
Yeah.
talk to that a little bit, how that works for people by being open?
Yeah, so of course we have an ancestral lineage, and with the astrology, you mentioned that there's quite a lot going on at the moment. We've just had beautiful eclipses, so we were sandwiched in between the South Node and the North Node. South Node is kind of like the past, and the North Node is where we're going in our destiny. Okay, and we were sandwiched in between that, so we were letting go of big things that perhaps we brought in with us, yes, ancestrally, definitely, but from other experiences and lifetimes, which are all, to be honest, running simultaneously right now. There's no kind of past, present, and future, but they were aspects of us. Yeah. So we were healing those and we were stepping into this part. And what's happening really now is a big kind of ancestral roots, and you know Pluto's in this here as well, and it's like, well, what do we actually not want to hold on to that wasn't even ours? It could have been our mothers' or our fathers' or even further back, but it's like that's not who we are. And we're stepping, this is my feeling anyway, we're stepping into this authentic person that is embodying this soul, and we're just playing at creating, you know and we don't have to kind of hold on to any of the you should do this, you should have done that. You were saying to me before, like, you actually, almost like the universe cleared everything out of the way for you so that you had no more excuses, and you had to step on that stage, figuratively speaking, like, step on the stage and just go, okay, all right, I'm a channel, all right, I'm going to do it, I'm no more resistance. And I was similar. I was younger then, but I was really resisting it. And anything that comes to me new galactics, new collectives that come through, I always question it. And I'm like, okay, who are you? Why are you coming in to work with me? But that's my science, you see, that's my science brain. But I think it's good to do that as well. So, it's good to discern what you're hearing, feel into it, but really feel into that part of you that has all the answers, because no one else has the answers. They can tell you something as we can, Ginny. We can talk about our perceptions and what we teach and how we are, but really, to be honest, no one's holy grail is for anyone else. It's for that, we have our own holy grail.
Well, it is, and that's what's so beautiful, because we live in this infinite universe, and so there's infinite ways that each individual gets to experience it, that we can create pointers
Yeah, facilitate.
and facilitate, which is what I believe you do, is help people when they're stuck in their 3D personality ego, and help
Yeah, but
them
also
clear stuff
when
out.
when they're not and they're like ready to really step into their ascension pathway, like, why are you really here? What was the thing that lights you up? What part of you is really being called? That's also exciting. And there's not so much of the ego, but there's more of the kind of, oh yeah, what did I really come to do? you know that's also exciting.
It is. I mean, I had a personal experience this morning where something came up. I'm kind of the person, when I don't feel well or something, I look at the first thing I do, spiritual meaning. Where am I not in alignment? What's
Yeah,
the message? And for
exactly. Oh,
me, and sometimes it's so simple where it's just like, I give it back. This is not mine. This is not my work to do. I
mhm.
release it and I let it go. And
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
yeah.
That's important as well to know, is this mine? Okay, if this is mine, then it's my responsibility to give myself compassion. I'm so sorry you're feeling sad. I'm so sorry that person triggered you. I'm so sorry you didn't feel worthy, or whatever it might be. And then we're actually giving compassion to a part of us. We've got no idea what part it is, but something showed up. Or we say, oh, actually, I'm not being triggered by that. So it's obviously not mine, but it's what is in my field, something that I've taken on from other people.
So
Mm.
if somebody is kind of not sure that they're
Yeah.
having an awakening, what would be some indicators that they're not going crazy.
Good question. I like that. Yeah, because I didn't know I was having an awakening at 27. Um, so things, I think definitely now everything's speeded up. So it would be things like your physical body. So here's a little disclaimer. I'm not a doctor and I don't claim to heal or cure. Okay. So I believe we are our own inner healers, but our physical body actually does show ascension symptoms. And that can be tiredness, aches and pains, headaches, things like that, when we are actually almost like shedding a skin, the guides are saying. So it's like we're shedding a skin, we're shedding the old jacket, and we're bringing this new frequency in. So quite often there are little bits of us in resistance, definitely, but there's also something called a healing peak. And in meta health, that I'm trained in, what we look at is there's an emotional conflict, and then when there's an acceptance, meaning a healing, there's a healing peak, and sometimes that can be a headache, or it can be getting really hot, or really cold, or a bit achy, or a pain somewhere, and that's often a healing peak. Heart rushing as well, a healing peak, and then we go into tiredness, which is called regeneration. So the body's just really clever at listening to the soul, but also showing us what we're healing. So that's one thing. The second thing is that our friendships change. So people that, we might have been friends with for like, I don't know, 20 years, whatever it might be, all of a sudden, we just feel like we just don't have anything in common with them. We can still love them, but we just don't have anything in common with them anymore. And that sometimes happens as well. So people leave your life or they come into your life, which is really exciting because that's more soul connected people that are on the journey with you. But I've got friends from 20 odd years ago, 30 years ago, that I'm still really good friends with. But we might not have the same, they definitely don't do what I do as a mission, but we still love each other and have really nice times together, right? But there are lots of people coming in, lots of people going out. Um, we also feel like we have a calling to things. So we might feel I've always wanted to visit, like you said, a retreat, or maybe to do shamanic work, or a calling to the angels, or a calling to do, well, people used to do Reiki, it's changed now, but find something like Rahani that is on a finer vibration, that actually is a healing modality, which comes from source, obviously. And we have these kind of callings. And the other thing that happens as well is we might see synchronicities. So we might see numbers, we might see, 222, 111, whatever. We might see feathers, we might hear songs, we might have dreams where we're meeting with loved ones that have passed. And we just get these like nudges, these intuitive nudges. Okay, these are kind of a few things that people have started to kind of show when they're awakening. Hmm. Can you add any?
Beautiful. And I think it's really important, you mentioned it earlier, where people that you've known for 10, 20, 30 years, your life, and you feel like you're headed to a different road. It's
Mm.
being open to that new, what I call your spiritual family or your soul family, because you don't have to walk that path alone.
Absolutely. But I do meet people that come into my soul family. Funny you call it that. It's called the Soul's Mission Membership, but I call it the Soul Family. And the people that come in, many of them say, oh, it's like being in family, but not in family. It's like I can speak about things that I can't speak about with my friends and family, right? And so that, you're right, it's like we're finding it's a tribe, but finding our family, finding our soul connected family, I think is what's happening with a lot of people. And there are many groups out there, as you know, that are really amazing to create special sacred places for people to be able to heal. You know, I have a YouTube channel, which is just my name, Susan Kennard, and I set that up because I just wanted to share healing and share a message out to the world rather than, you know, thinking they're just people that can come into a membership or have a private session or be in a retreat. Actually, it's free. It's out there. People can just, you know, they can access it in their own home, you know, on a Friday morning quite often, you know, where the healing comes through. And that's why I wrote my book as well, Awaken the Light Within Your Heart, because it was another way for people to heal themselves. You know, it's got a lot of processes in the back, but it's also got channeling from the guides. So a bit about my awakening, but then channeling from the guides coming through and really connecting with us, you know, and really helping us to heal by listening to their words. And it's in book format, but it's also recorded on Audible. So I recorded it in a studio so that it was my voice.
That's so beautiful. And we'll be sure to put these links above this interview so that you can easily find it. And
Yeah.
if you are drawn to Susan and her message and her channels, her spirit guides, that you can get in touch with her. So is there any last words of wisdom you would like to share before we go today?
Just wondering whether we should call in a team and see what they've got to say, shall we?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Go for it.
See who's around. Ah, let's just see who's around. Oh, okay. So the Rainbow Galactics have been very present over the last 6 months, and they're presenting themselves. They come in to the right side of me, and I tried to get them to tell me their name in a different way, but they just keep calling themselves the Rainbow Galactics, and so they are a galactic collective, and they come on the rainbow light of ascension. So a bit like my background, they come on that frequency, and they're here to help us with our opening of our hearts. Okay, so let's see what they want to say today. Hmm. Hmm. As you awaken to the wholeness of your heart, you step forward into the blissness that you can only imagine you can feel. You have not felt this bliss from the time you were just soul spirit. You have not felt this bliss in your human form. However, as you awaken to this wholeness within your heart that has always been present, you start to feel the sense of the peace and the unity and the tiny bliss moments when you feel in alignment with your joy and your heart. We are here to assist in that process with many of you here on this planet at this time. There is a great expansion happening. There is a great awakening as the channels speak about today. But it is your job only to hold this space in your heart, to be compassionate to yourself, to love yourself, but not from the place of loving another, but loving yourself from a place of unity, of remembering that you are divine light, you are divinity itself, and yes, you are choosing a physical form to share that divine light with humanity. And we come and we blend with your energy. Ask for us to be present. We are the Rainbow Galactics, and we are here at your service. Okay.
That is so beautiful. And
Mm.
it's, yes. It's not-
I can never remember what they say, so it's
Well, what's nice is this is recorded, so
yes.
I understand that very
Mm,
much so. I'm just gonna leave it that to
oh,
stay in
thank
that space and
yeah.
and be open. And if you really resonate with Susan, we'll be sure to get you so you can get in touch with her. And just honor yourself and the wholeness of who and what you truly are. So thank you, Susan.